what really helps is the bottom-up estimation, which is actually kind of what I was talking about in terms of the team delivering. The team does the estimate, the team does the development, the team does the delivery. So the ownership is around the team and the people who actually do the work. So here in this case, you got each and everything actually kind of broken down into different individual elements. So sometimes it could be broken down into the work, so what we call as work breakdown structure, so which is very popular. I'm going to discuss that in greater detail in the next few slides when we go each and every methodology. And then it can also be broken down by modules. So you actually have got like a big product. So it could be, for example, the e-commerce website we were talking about. It could actually be broken down in terms of modules or architectures or functional levels. So you can actually have something like, okay, shopping cart. And then you can have something like a catalog as one module. And the third one could be payment processing. And the fourth one could be order processing. So each of these are different modules, are different architectural entities that could be developed on their own. So we can actually have the breakdown happening in detail. And then from each of these, within each of these, we'll then have the respective, again, further breakdown. And what does a catalog have? A catalog has got the items shown on the pages. So you should have page. And then within that, again, you will have how many items will be shown on the page and what are the kind of items. Do you have thumbnails? So the detailing will go on and on and on. So the team actually delves deeper and deeper and deeper. And then they come up with a kind of a proper requirements to be able to actually show. And that's where the cards, conversations, and confirmations, the 3 C's of user stories would really help. So you're actually trying to actually get into deeper and deeper detailing about that. So, and that's when, once you have that, then you can actually come up with a clear picture. Like, for example, yesterday we were talking about painting the house. Just by looking at the house, a painter could actually say, oh yeah, it's about 2-bedroom and a hall and a kitchen. It should roughly take about 10,000 pounds. Is what an experienced painter could actually say without even looking at all the dimensions. But then if you really go into the details and then you give the contract to them or you ask them to come over, then they start actually taking down the measurements, the dimensions of each of these. Then the detailing would come. Do you have 1 coat, 2 coats of the paint, which paint, blah, blah, blah. All of those would come into the picture. And then that's when the real detailing of the requirements would come in. And from there, from that point, you're actually trying to get into the specifics of the work involved and the schedule and the cost and the resources required and all of that stuff. So that's where, that's the reason why this kind of bottom-up estimation is really more accurate. It's definitely more precise than the top-down estimation, because you actually have got better detailing, better picture, clearer picture in terms of the specifics and the components within each of the tasks. And then the example for this is basically the development team. We were talking about that, the development team in the agile development projects, they typically use, like, for example, planning poker or things like these, the cards. They can actually kind of use the planning poker to be able to actually discuss in detail the requirement. And then what is the backend? Do we have a database? Do we have the tables already? If not, do we have to create table? What kind of a table is needed? And do we have all the fields? How many fields does this table have? Are the fields, what kind of data type are these fields? Is it a varchar or is it an integer? So all of these, is it a string? How can we actually play around with that? So all of these actually detailing would actually come in the discussions of the developers. So they're not going to talk about the 30,000 feet overview. They're talking about the specific field level discussions. And that's where the detailing will go. And that's where the real sizing and the effort would come in. So understand, we're going to discuss this in detail in the next few slides about the work breakdown structure and the user story points and the planning poker. But at this point of time, just be clear that the bottom-up estimation, whatever estimates that you come up with, is definitely it's not going to be the same as the top-down estimate, because there are 2 different approaches. There are 2 different ways of arriving at that, perhaps 2 different routes that you would take to reach some certain goal. But then the goal may not be always the same, because you end up somewhere else than what you want it to be, because where you want it to go, because the approaches are different, the outcomes are different, the people who actually do these estimates, they're also different, same people. So what you need to understand in that context is how you would need to take the top-down estimate with a pinch of salt, but you need to actually look at the bottom-up estimate in a very, very detailed way. And you should actually kind of appreciate that if it's taking fairly longer time, then so be it. So be it, because the development team needs so much of time to actually kind of break down the whole complexity into the fundamental modules, and then each module having separate features, each feature having separate epics, each epic going down to stories, each story into further level of acceptance criteria, and then tasks, and then further sort of activities. So you actually get to see the detailing in the bottom-up estimation, and that's why it's going to be far more accurate and far more precise and perhaps more realistic. I cannot say that it is actually the same as actuals, because obviously there are so many variables in that. So it's far more accurate in terms of the variability. Perhaps it could be about between 5% to 30% of variation when you do a bottom-up estimation to the actuals. Whereas in the top-down, it could be anywhere between 30% to 60%, because you don't have all the details in there. So that's the kind of difference that you have between the top-down and bottom-up estimates.